Welcome to the Navy SEAL Bible Study, Part 6. In the last video, we showed how John chapter 8 is chiastically connected to Revelation chapters 12 to 14. In this video, I will now demonstrate how the Apostle John connects the mark of the beast and 666 to the part of the story in John chapter 8, where Jesus writes on the ground with his finger. And this is just beautiful, so prepare to have your mind blown. The first thing is, you need to understand the true meaning of 666. There has been a lot of speculation about this number, and seriously, a lot of people have taken us all on a wild goose chase. What we need is less speculation and more Bible study. Fortunately, our Navy SEAL Bible Study saves the day once again and has discovered the true meaning of 666, and we're confident we can back it up. But rather than me simply tell you, why don't I just show you? You will see with your own eyes, and afterwards I won't even have to say a single word, because it'll be so obvious. So, in just a moment, I'll ask Diana to play a video clip, and this will show how Jesus writing on the ground with his finger connects with the mark of the beast. But we're going to go further and kill two birds with one stone here, because Jesus writing on the ground was not John's endgame. So we're going to show you the endgame, the true meaning of 666. So flip the connections over. Jesus writing on the ground confirms we are laser focused on where John's headed. It's an insane confirmation. John's basically saying, yeah, you got this. Now bring it on home. And one thing about the Navy SEAL Bible Study, we never leave a man behind, or a woman, or any other pronoun. All right, we'd better get moving before I start digging myself into a foxhole I can't get out of. All right, let's go. Okay, Diana. Now's good, Diana.
It's probably going to say...
We have now reached the part where I explain the real meaning of 666 and how it relates to
Hold
the
on, I need to mute my...
Revelations chapter 13, verse 18 reads, "This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. That number is 666. Throughout this chapter, the Apostle John has been referring us to the book of Daniel. Now in verse 18, he's again referring us to Daniel when he says, "This calls for wisdom. Let the person who has insight." The prophet Daniel had established a reputation for outstanding wisdom and insight. For example, in Daniel chapter 5 verse 11, the queen of Babylon describes Daniel as having insight and wisdom like that of the gods. Then Daniel is brought before King Belshazzar, who is a descendant of Nebuchadnezzar, and the king says in verse 14, "I have heard you have insight and outstanding wisdom, and that you can solve difficult problems." So John is again referring us to Daniel, and quite possibly Daniel chapter 5, because Daniel is now asked by the king to solve a difficult problem, which he does indeed solve, and in doing so gives us the key to calculate the number of the beast. This next part is genius. The Apostle John says the number of the beast is the same number of a man, and this mystery man can be identified by 666. Now John loves taking us back into the Old Testament, so ask yourself, where in the Old Testament does 666 occur? Well, believe it or not, 666 actually occurs in two places. In one place, it's a number, and in the other place, it's a weight. In Ezra chapter 2, verse 13, there are 666 children belonging to Adonikam. And in 1 Kings chapter 10, verse 14, the weight of gold received by King Solomon each year was 666 talents. So 666 is both a number and a weight. So was there a man in the Old Testament that was numbered and weighed? Well, hang on to your butts, because there actually was. And this mystery man is found in, wait for it, Daniel chapter 5. It's King Belshazzar himself. The difficult problem that Daniel had to solve was a message that had been written into a wall. What happened was King Belshazzar was holding a banquet, and they were really going to town. His nobles, his wives, his concubines. But then the king had the gold goblets brought in that had been taken from the temple in Jerusalem, and they started drinking from them. And not only that, but as they drank the wine, they praised the gods of gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Suddenly the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall near the lampstand in the royal palace. The king watched the hand as it wrote. His face turned pale, and he was so frightened that his legs became weak and his knees were knocking. Then all the king's wise men came in, but they could not read the writing or tell the king what it meant. So King Belshazzar became even more terrified, and his face grew more pale. His nobles were baffled. So Daniel was brought before the king, and he said to him, "If you can read this writing and tell me what it means, you will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around your neck, and you will be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom." Then Daniel answered the king, "You may keep your gifts for yourself and give your rewards to someone else. Nevertheless, I will read the writing for the king and tell him what it means. This is the inscription that was written, Mene, Mene, Tekel, Parsin. Here is what these words mean. Mene, God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. Paris, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. So King Belshazzar was numbered and weighed by God, and this is the true meaning of 666. It refers us to Daniel chapter 5. I am now certain that John is saying that we can calculate the number of the beast from Daniel chapter 5. So how do we calculate it? We calculate it from the message that was written into the wall. Hang on to your butts again, because it turns out that Mene, Mene, Tekel, Perez each have numerical values because they are a denomination of currency. We need to use the lowest denomination because God had numbered his days and not his months or years. The lowest denomination of currency in those days was the gera, and one mene was 1,000 geras. One shekel was 20 geras, and a pers was half a mene or 500 geras. So mene mene tekel pers calculates to 2520. So the wordsmithing of Revelations chapter 13 verse 18 deserves a brilliancy prize in my opinion. So we have calculated the number of the beast to be 2520, and this is also the length of its reign. But 2520 days in prophecy means 2520 actual years. Now wait a minute, we've already seen this number. In the overview video, part 2, the Rapture Ready team explained how 2520 years was the punishment period for the Jews, and that this was described in the book of Daniel as 7 times. Now here's a question for you. Did you spot the special information in the last video? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego had refused to bow down to the statue of gold. How did King Nebuchadnezzar respond? He became enraged. Heat the furnace to 7 times its usual temperature. Daniel himself had prophesied that the blazing furnace would be a part of the 7 times punishment period. John is telling us that his prophecy in Revelations chapter 13 is the same exact prophecy, except John adds that the blazing furnace will occur at the end of the 7 times, because John's prophecy takes place after the beast comes up from the abyss, gathers the nations for worldwide war, and then attacks, overpowers, and kills the Jews, as we discovered in Revelations chapter 11. Tying people up and throwing their bodies into a blazing furnace could not be more accurate a description of the horrors of the Holocaust. As for King Belshazzar, to finish the story, in Daniel chapter 5, he was slain that very night, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at the age of 62.
All right, so 666 is both a number and a weight in the Old Testament, and it identifies John's mystery man in Revelations chapter 13 verse 18 as King Belshazzar, as he was both numbered and weighed by God in Daniel chapter 5. Daniel himself is also identified by his reputation for having insight and outstanding wisdom, which is also from Daniel chapter 5. The number of the beast can be calculated from the message that was handwritten into the wall, because the words Mene, Mene, Tekel, Perez are also currency denominations that, when added together, equals 2520. Daniel also describes this number as 7 times. And in the story about the blazing furnace, the enraged King Nebuchadnezzar says to heat the furnace to 7 times its usual temperature. And this 7 times is the special information that matches the blazing furnace to the Holocaust. I have made a file note on this. Excellent work.
Obviously, there's a lot more to talk about, like how 666 has been turned into a wild goose chase, but I need to finish up matching the data points on the evidence board to Ezekiel chapter 39. But I will say this. The true meaning of 666 has been sealed by God up until now. It was always going to be a wild goose chase while the information was sealed up. The only reason that we know about this now is because it's been declassified by God himself. Neither I nor Angelina or the Rapture Ready team take any credit for these discoveries. But I tell you what, it's a damn good feeling to put Revelations chapter 13 behind me. How do you feel?
I'm feeling pretty good. I feel we've made good progress. I feel great knowing your video's up next, so can I go relax now?
I reckon we should celebrate because Revelations chapters 11 and 13 are done. Where's the drinks fridge? How about playing some of that smooth jazz?
I would love to. I didn't think you were into jazz. Yeah, you seem like more of a heavy metal guy. A bit of Ozzy Osbourne, maybe?